Okay, hey everybody and welcome back to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today we have a very cool new release from Raven Watches for you. A little bit about the brand. First, Raven was founded in 2008. They're headquartered out of the US. They're a micro brand, and that's pretty much really well known for their vintage style homages. With modern upgrades, of course. Now, they're pretty much moving towards more unique / original designs, and this is basically their second outing kind of within that realm of more original designs. So a little bit about this type of watch. It's a vintage style diver. Some key commonalities, key characteristics you're going to see across the board when looking at a watch in this category is something that's going to be more modestly sized, something with a very minimalist style dial and hand layout. Basically it's going to be for really focusing on legible timekeeping. You're still going to have to look for water resistance through some type of screw down crown, a unidirectional dive time bezel, of course, as well. So let's go ahead and zoom out here and pick this up and take a little bit of a closer look and go over some of these details. So this is the Trekker from Raven Watches. This particular model is the RT01, which basically means it is the one with the brushed case and bracelet, and it also has the date on there. So basically this is their, like I mentioned earlier, they're kind of breaking away from the original Raven vintage 40mm, which was definitely more of an homage to the vintage Rolex Big Crown. So this, although it has very many key characteristics kind of from watches in that era, it really doesn't, it's not really copying any particular watch. It definitely just has a lot of cool key design elements that that you'll kind of see across the board from that era. So the retail price is about $710 shipped. And that's directly, from Raven. If you buy direct, it's pretty much the only option, and of course that's for shipping within the US. So luckily I'm located in the US, so that was the price for me. As far as the specs go, they were in the beginning of the video posted, but I'll go over them a little bit here. So it is 40mm in diameter with a 13mm height up, basically from the case back to that nicely proud sapphire crystal there that you see. It's made out of stainless steel. It is fully and completely brushed, as you can see. There's no polishing on here. This is the completely brushed model. They actually don't have any models with any type of polishing. The other options are basically bead blast or DLC coat. So something to keep in mind. As far as the crystal goes, it is a sapphire crystal, double domed with inner AR coating, and basically, although the top of the crystal is flat, essentially, the chamfer around the end here basically has that nice rounded dome to it. So really nice, still quite legible because there is a dome underneath the crystal as well. And then the bezel is 120 clicks, unidirectional. Really nice action on here. Really nice grip, even with the gloves on here. Really just beautiful action. And the teeth on this bezel, I mean, they really tell the story as far as, when do you know that this is a quality piece? The minute you put your hand right here on this bezel, that grip, the way it locks in, really, really very nice. Okay, so then also we have the crown here. It is a signed crown, very nice with that Raven logo. The crown is very reminiscent of the Tudor Black Bay, where it kind of has that space where the kind of the grip ends, and it's just kind of a bit of a look of a collar there, but it's not colored like on the Tudor. It's left in steel, which I think looks great. All right, so the movement inside is the Miyota 9015, which is kind of right now the darling for micro brands, but With the Swatch Group making ETA 2824s more available, you are seeing those options start to resurface more. So that is pretty nice, because I know that basically the prices for the 9015 have been rising, and it's kind of cool now that the ETAs are starting to drop. So they're starting to come to a crossroads where you're going to start seeing some options with Swiss movements, some options with Japanese movements. But honestly, I feel like the 9015 is a step above the 2824. It's kind of, I'd say, smack right in between the 2824 and the 2892 from ETA. So it's a really nice movement, very slim, and which kind of enables it to be in this slimmer case. I mean, if it wasn't for that kind of you know, the domed sapphire, as well as this kind of bubble back, which adds to the comfort, as you know, I'll be able to show you once I get this on wrist. I'm sure they could have got this a lot thinner, but it's really nice that they actually retain that 300 meters water resistance, because there are many vintage style divers out there that you know, come in with 100 meters water resistant just to kind of keep those proportions. It was nice that they were actually able to find a happy median, I feel like, with the Trekker here. So as far as the dial hands and loom, we have the date there just underneath the minute hand, as you can see. It's right there at about the 4.5. We have printed indices, a matte black dial with painted hands, of course. And then it's using BGW9 Super Luminova, which is very nice. And you'll see this has really fantastic loom. As you can see, it is marked there, water resistant to 300 meters. The bracelet is a really nice Jubilee bracelet with 20 millimeter lugs, and it does taper down here to the clasp at 18 millimeters. So really, really comfortable, really, really classic looking. One thing about these solid end links that you might notice, that you might have seen in pictures, is that the actual end link there is solid, and it jets out a little bit. And at first it kind of threw me off. I was kind of wondering, well, you know, what was the point of that? You know, I really couldn't figure it out. But when I actually thought about it and actually looked at a couple of my other watches, it's really not that dissimilar from when you see just kind of that T end link for a modern oyster style bracelet, right? So it's going to be solid, and then it's going to have the little piece that comes out, and then essentially the bracelet's going to hang from there versus hanging from underneath the case, and that just helps it kind of wear a little bit fuller, and I think it looks really nice on the wrist because of that feature, versus if, let's say, these were loose and they were cut out and they went into the end link, they would kind of be laying, and there would be a little bit sag there. So I think that's actually a really cool feature. If you have a smaller wrist, it might be an issue for you. I really don't think it will be, but basically if you have a larger wrist, it's not only gonna be a non-issue, it might really be kind of a bonus for you, because it's just gonna help that watch lay that much nicer. So let's go ahead and get this on wrist. So as you can see here, the clasp is really nice flip lock there, really finely machined, no stamped steel here. This is all milled out. There isn't a diver's extension, but you know, really, I don't think there needs to be. I think, you know, that kind of is in fitting with the vintage aesthetic. It would be nice, but you know, I think this style clasp really suits it. And as you can see, this wears really nicely on my 7.5 inch wrist. I'm sorry, 7.25 inch wrist. So as I kind of mentioned before, right? Although this is a 40 millimeter, it actually wears really nicely. It doesn't feel really small or dainty, or even that much like a vintage watch. I mean, I think visually the aesthetic is definitely very vintage and retro, but on the wrist it just feels like a really solid modern watch, which I think is kind of the coolest thing about it. It really took a different approach than a lot of manufacturers are taking these days, where they're kind of vintageizing kind of existing models. This one kind of created a vintage design and then put it in a modern package, which I think is really great. And as you can see, it just wears really nicely. I want to be able to make sure that, and then that domed shape case back really allows for some great movement there. So my wrist moving up here is very comfortable, and then also moving down because of that nice taper is also very comfortable. Of course, Jubilee bracelets, if you've ever had one, you know, maybe you're an SKX 007 or 009 fan, they're very comfortable. Of course, though, the only issue is you know, it's an old design, and you know, true to the original designs, they're very, you know, tinny, although comfortable. This is very solid, extremely solid, really well done, has a very nice balanced weight to it, and I gotta say, I think it looks really, really great. So, you know, on the wrist, it really has those classic proportions that are going to fit almost any situation. I mean, this can be dressed up, dressed down, and I think the touch with the Jubilee is just really, really well timed, because it just adds another one of those kind of vintage features that just, but at the same time, it's really unique, right? Because you don't see a lot of these watches on Jubilees. You see them normally on an Oyster, or a Rivet Oyster is kind of a little bit of the craze right now. So it's really nice that Raven kind of departed a bit from what else is going on, and they did their own thing, and I can definitely appreciate and applaud that. So as far as other model variants, there's basically all the other variants are no date models, and they have an option of bead blasting or DLC coating, or of course brushed stainless as well. And within those stainless steel options, there's basically a version that, I mean, they're all black, essentially, the dial and hands, you know, pretty much same setup. But you get yellow accents with some other options. So make sure to check those out as well. I think they all look really great. For me, I felt like this was kind of that great classic kind of black and steel feel, and it just really spoke to me as far as kind of the aesthetic. It almost reminds me of, you know, it has a couple elements of the Black Bay mixed in actually with a couple elements of the Pelagos. So I think that's really, really cool. I think most people, I mean, for me at least, there's a lot of things I like about the Black Bay, but I'm still held back. Same thing, there's a lot of things that I really like about the Pelagos, but there's just those things, and I wish that there was a watch that was kind of both of those and I could pick and choose from. And you know, I feel like this really comes very, very close to achieving that, as far as at least aesthetically. So really, really nice. I mean, that matte finish, oh excuse me, the matte finish there on the bezel, I mean, it just is really nice, you know. Although, yeah, it's not ceramic, it's definitely really nice. It's metal, it's coated, and then, you know, it has the lume filled here. It's just really great piece. So now, as far as comparable models out there, you know, there's a lot of comparables out there right now. Vintage is definitely back. You know, you're seeing the smaller sizes starting to become popularized again. You know, but a lot of the options, you know, as far as, you know, an original quote unquote looking vintage style diver is, you know, you're going to see those in the upper tiers, you know, like the Oris Diver 65, which of course, although it is a diver, it is only 100 meters water resistance, but, you know, that's more than enough, you know, to be quite honest, as far as, you know, the average swimmer or diver, or just the average person who wears a dive watch. And then, of course, kind of as I mentioned before, there's the Tudor Black Bay, but that's essentially, you know, 4 times the cost, and it's still not necessarily, you know, the perfect watch. I feel like the options that are available for the Black Bay are still a bit polarizing and very specific. You know, I feel like the Black Bay, it really, because of the combinations, I don't think any one of the Tudor Black Bays could be your one watch. I think the Tudor is a great piece to have, you know, within a collection. It's a fantastic piece. I still, you know, will probably own one day. But, you know, as far as that kind of aesthetic where it could kind of be your one watch and be extremely versatile, I feel like there's those options just aren't necessarily there. And I feel like the way this was executed, this could to me, I mean, it could really be that one watch. It's just, you know, it's well designed enough, and of course finely crafted enough to wear every day. But because, you know, the design isn't so polarizing, it definitely is something that makes it extremely versatile. You know, there's also within kind of a closer price range would probably be something like the Zodiac Seawolf 53. There's that line, you know, those are more on the affordable side, but you know, those designs to me are even more polarizing. You know, they're very, if you take a look at them, they're just a little bit more dynamic, I guess you could say. It's not a knock against them. I think they look really good, but I think they're really shooting for a particular buyer versus offering something that kind of the everyman can wear. And I feel like this definitely had the everyman in mind. So that's the reason why I'm really enjoying it so much. So I'd say probably the closest competition for this piece would be, you know, maybe the C60 Trident Pro 38mm vintage. But again, that kind of has a different school of thought than this one does. For that watch, they took a modern watch and kind of vintageized it with that faux patina, and you know, and tried to kind of make it look aged and older. For this piece, I feel like it was actually designed with vintage cues, styling cues, but then put into a modern package versus kind of taking a modern package and trying to age it and make it look a little bit older. This actually was designed with the vintage aesthetic in mind, and then of course built to modern specs, which I think is absolutely fantastic. I mean, really the bottom line here is this is a very finely executed, thoughtfully designed, and you know, just a really solid value. So I think we skipped the mandatory loom shot, so let's make sure we get that in there. Let's get this down here. We'll zoom in, not too far in. Keep it sharp there and focus. All right, a little bit higher. Okay, let's just charge it up real quick here. Make sure it's nice charged for the video. And as you can see, that BGW9 is just glowing very, very proudly. It has that great cool blue color, which is nice because when it glows, it's very distinctive, you know, although it's not as I'd say the initial brightness isn't as strong as something like a C3. It definitely still has that staying power, and it's still very sharp and very legible. And it's a cooler tone, so it's going to be a little bit easier on the eyes when you're, you know, when you're walking in from a sunny day and you go into the movie theater. This is not going to be blasting and burning anybody's eyes or distracting them, but it's definitely going to remain legible for a very long period of time. So I'm really happy with the loom, and I was actually really surprised to see that they actually had a fully loomed bezel. That's something, as I was reading about it, I really didn't expect to see that. And I'm really glad and pleasantly surprised that I do see that, because it's just really finely executed. I mean, look at how sharp everything is. Extremely legible. Just really, really beautifully done. So, I guess while we're here, let me zoom out a bit. And let's actually take a look at the packaging. I normally don't do this, but I gotta say I was really impressed with Raven. It actually came in this really cool leather travel case here. So let's go ahead and show that. Really cool. Little flap here. She got that great Admiralty gray. It's not a NATO, but it's technically a Zulu strap, which is really nice. Of course, you know, you have your warranty card. You got a great little Raven sticker in there, extra spring bars. Very, very cool, very unique. And it's nice to have a usable case, because I do have, you know, a closet full of watch boxes. And this definitely adds to the value, right? As far as having something that's usable. Then under this flap, you actually see there's space for 2 watches, and it came with this really great rubber. And I'm a very big stickler for rubber straps, as far as, you know, the right kind of blend and material. And I gotta say, these are really, really nice. I haven't had a chance to put it on the watch yet, but I mean, I can already tell just kind of by the way it feels in hand and the touch. It's really nicely done. I really just enjoy that Jubilee though so much that I haven't had a chance to put it on this rubber. But you know, if you are thinking about paying a little bit extra and getting that rubber, I gotta say, I think it's really nice. It's not something that's super dusty. Sometimes there's that basically that finish to where, although it looks nice and matted, it makes it more dusty. And then basically if it's too shiny and slick, then it makes it really stiff. I think this is a really nice median, and it's not too thick either, which is really nice. So, you know, just a little kind of bonus right there, as you can see. Really cool. And of course there's this place for me to keep it nice and organized. I can put the watch in there, so I think that looks really cool. But, you know, really the star here is this great watch. And, you know, I think it's really cool. And, you know, kind of like I said before, it's just, at this price range, there's just so many other watches that are just more derivative. And not that there's anything wrong with it, homage, but the cool thing about this watch is you can go out, you can go anywhere, and really feel confident that no one is going to look at it and say, oh, well, he's trying to look like he's wearing a sub, you know, or that's a fake, quote unquote, this or that, right? You can wear this with confidence. Somebody will kind of look at it, and a real aficionado will probably wonder, you know, what exactly it is. And somebody who's kind of just a passerby, yeah, I don't think they'll think this is a sub. I mean, unless they really don't care, which then it really doesn't matter, right? If they're not too into the hobby. But I just think it's just really great. I mean, and basically the touch points on here are so fantastic. The bezel, the crown, you know, it's just the pieces that you're going to be working with are just fantastic, and just the quality screams. They knew kind of where those touch points would be, and I feel like they took that extra care, and just the very thoughtful design. You know, I really can't complain. I was when I got this piece, I was really kind of looking for things, and I think when I first picked it up, there was a couple things that I kind of scratched my head about. But, you know, after wearing it for a couple of days, I gotta say, everything kind of just makes sense now, and I really enjoy it. It definitely has that vintage X factor, and I gotta say, I'm really happy to own it, and I highly recommend. So, guys, if you liked the video, please hit like. If you haven't already, please subscribe, and stay tuned for more content. Thanks.